Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into the, well, frankly, extraordinary life of Sheldon Adelson. By the time he passed away, his name was basically synonymous with, colossal wealth, these huge global resorts, and just immense political influence.
It really was.
And his story has this fascinating paradox at its core. I mean, here's a guy born the son of a poor Boston taxi driver, right? Yet he ends his life with a fortune around, $35.9 billion, and the kind of power that could genuinely shape American politics, even international stuff.
It's staggering when you put it like that.
And what's really wild is that he nearly lost it all at one point, then comes back, engineers one of the biggest comebacks, really, in U.S. history. Okay, let's unpack this. How does a story like that even happen? What's the mindset there? What are the strategies?
That's a big question, isn't it? And it's exactly what we want to dig into today, because Adelson's life, it really is like a masterclass in seeing money differently, not as, the end goal or just a pile of cash, but as this active tool, an instrument for power, and a way to completely reinvent things, including himself.
Right.
So our mission here isn't just running through the biography or the numbers. It's about dissecting that unique mindset, the strategies he used, often quite calculated, and, frankly, the sheer resilience behind it all. We'll try to connect what Adelson did, his specific actions and philosophies, to maybe some broader insights, things that might resonate with you, the listener, whether you're thinking about your career, maybe building a business, or just trying to get a handle on the forces shaping our world.
Okay, so let's start right back at the beginning. Because understanding Adelson really means understanding where his financial thinking came from. He was born in 1933, Dorchester neighborhood of Boston. And his early life was, defined by scarcity.
Very much so.
Father was a taxi driver, struggling. His mother ran a knitting shop out of their apartment, a triple-decker. Money wasn't just tight. It sounds like it was this constant visible pressure.
Yeah.
And we know he started showing that entrepreneurial spark incredibly young, like 12 years old. He's already out there hustling, selling newspapers just to bring in a few extra cents.
Yeah.
How did that environment, that constant need to hustle, that lack of resources, how did that embed certain ideas about money that stuck with him?
I think that early experience wasn't just background noise. It was the actual forge where his whole philosophy about money got hammered out. For Adelson, money was never just about getting by. And it wasn't really about luxury or comfort either, certainly not at first. It was about leverage. That's the key word.
Leverage.
Yeah. Creating options for himself, creating opportunities, having influence that other people who didn't have the capital just couldn't access. That became this core principle for them, almost visceral. He had this mantra his whole life, cash is king.
Right. I've heard that associated with him.
And he meant it quite literally. Liquidity wasn't just a safety net for bad times. He saw it as his ultimate weapon.
An ultimate weapon? That's strong.
It is. He saw cash as this strategic asset that let him jump on opportunities super fast, especially when others were hesitating or, their hands were tied financially.
Okay. Ultimate weapon is definitely aggressive. Can you give an example of how that cash is king idea actually played out for him, maybe before he became this global giant? Something that really proved the point for him.
Oh, absolutely. The perfect example is COMDEX. Remember COMDEX?
Vaguely, yeah. The big computer show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He founded it back in the 70s. Personal computers were just starting out, kind of a niche thing. He saw the need for this massive marketplace, a place for businesses and tech to connect. And COMDEX just exploded, became the biggest tech trade show on the planet.
Wow.
So fast forward to 1995, he decides to sell his share, and it brings in nearly $900 million.
Pure cash.
$900 million in cash.
In cash. And that experience, you can imagine, just completely solidified his belief that having massive liquid assets wasn't just smart, it was incredibly empowering and let him make big moves decisively. Because for Adelson, wealth, ultimately, it was about control.
Yeah. He wasn't just trying to rack up a high score, build a fortune just to have it. He famously said, I don't play to lose less. I play to win big. He saw money as the way to dictate terms, to shape markets, even push society in directions he wanted. So it's not just having wealth, it's using wealth actively as this dynamic tool to exert control.
That distinction, money as a tool for control, not just an endpoint. That is a really powerful way to think about it, and different from how most people see wealth, I think.
I think so, too.
What's amazing, though, is that Adelson, he's already super wealthy from COMDEX. He could have just, kicked back, enjoyed it.
Right.
But no, at 55 in age, when lots of people are winding down, he makes maybe his boldest move ever. 1989, he buys the old Sands Hotel and Casino in Vegas, $128 million. Now, most people probably just saw that as, okay, another casino deal. A bit of a gamble, maybe, but nothing revolutionary.
Standard Vegas play.
Yeah. But Adelson clearly saw something different. What was it? What was his vision for the Sands that made it different? And what did others miss?
He saw way beyond the traditional casino model. The model that had run Vegas for decades, mostly focused on attracting high rollers, the big gamblers. Adelson had this vision, this idea, to transform a simple casino into what he called an integrated resort.
Integrated resort.
Is a totally new concept for Vegas at the time. The idea was to blend everything together. Luxury hotels, yes, but also massive convention centers, top-tier theaters, world-class restaurants, high-end shopping malls, and the gaming floor. All under one roof, seamlessly connected.
So the gambling was just one piece of a much bigger puzzle.
Exactly. The core idea, which was pretty radical then, was to attract everyone, not just the serious gamblers. Business travelers for conventions, tourists looking for entertainment, shoppers, diners. By diversifying like that, he created multiple interlocking ways to make money. It made the whole thing much more resilient and potentially much more profitable. He wasn't just building a casino, he was trying to build an entire economic ecosystem.
It sounds like he really tapped into how leisure travel was changing, maybe moving beyond just putting chips on a table. But how hard was it to actually pull off that integrated resort vision? Was there pushback? Skepticism?
Oh, enormous skepticism, absolutely. Because first, it needed massive amounts of cash up front, huge investment. And second, it was a complete break from how Vegas usually did things.
Right.
The traditional casino bosses, they were laser focused on the gaming floor. That's where the big margins were, or so they thought. They looked at huge convention spaces, fancy restaurants, luxury shops. They saw those as expensive extras, things that diluted the main business of gambling.
Cost centers, basically.
Pretty much. But Adelson had this different theory. He believed conventions would bring in a steady stream of visitors, especially midweek when casinos were traditionally slower. And these visitors, even if they didn't gamble much, would spend money on hotel rooms, food, shopping, shows. It all added up.
So the convention center wasn't just an add-on, it was a feeder.
Exactly. And he built the Venetian in Vegas. Opened in '99 as the proof of concept. It was iconic, really integrated all those pieces. He definitely faced resistance from lenders, even from some people on his own team who questioned the scale, the cost. But, well, it paid off. Big time. It helped transform the Strip into this global entertainment destination, not just a gambling town.
And he didn't just stop in Vegas, did he? He took this model and looked east. What did he see over there?
His vision was always global. He saw massive, untapped potential in Asia. And his move into Macau in 2004, opening the Sands Macau, that was a genuine game changer.
Macau, right. The former Portuguese colony near Hong Kong.
Yeah, it was this sort of underdeveloped market, but potentially huge demand, especially from mainland China. Adelson took his integrated resort idea, tweaked it a bit for the local market, focusing heavily on the mass market and conventions, and the result was just immediate, astounding success.
How astounding?
That first Sands Macau casino, it cost about $240 million to build. Relatively modest by his later standards, it recouped its entire construction cost in less than 1 year.
Wow. Under a year.
Under a year. That wasn't just success. It was like a giant flashing sign saying he'd found the world's most profitable gaming market.
So he obviously didn't stop there.
No way. He built on that momentum immediately. Developed the Venetian Macau, opened in 2007. At the time, it was the largest casino resort on the planet, just colossal.
Bigger than the Vegas one.
Oh yeah, way bigger. And then came maybe his crown jewel, the Marina Bay Sands in Singapore, opened in 2010.
That's the one with the ship on top, right?
That's the one. That incredible structure, like a ship perched across 3 towers, cost something like $5.7 billion. It's now one of the most photographed buildings in Asia, totally iconic. And the scale of his success was just mind-blowing. By 2013, mostly because of Macau and Singapore booming, his personal fortune jumped by $15 billion in a single year.
$15 billion in 1 year.
Yep. Took him up to $37.2 billion. Made Las Vegas Sands the most valuable casino company in the world. So like you said, this wasn't just building casinos. He was literally creating these entire ecosystems of wealth. A masterclass in seeing a market, defining a new category, and just dominating it.
Creating ecosystems of wealth across continents, It really does underline the sheer audacity of his vision. But, even for someone riding that high, there are always tests, big tests.
Always.
And Adelson faced, well, the ultimate test during the 2008 global financial crisis. This wasn't just a little dip.
Not at all.
His fortune cratered. Went from almost $30 billion down to just $2 billion. That's a 93% collapse. Forbes called it one of the biggest personal wealth destructions ever recorded.
It was catastrophic.
Credit agencies downgraded his company, Las Vegas Sands, to junk status. It seriously looked like the empire was about to crumble. Bankruptcy seemed like a real possibility.
It did. The company was burning through cash.
So when his back was truly against the wall, the whole financial world seemingly collapsing around him,
Right.
What did he do? How did he navigate that?
Well, his reaction was distinct.
Yeah.
And honestly, almost unprecedented for someone in that position. Instead of retreating, selling off assets, looking for a government bailout like a lot of companies were doing,
Yeah.
he did the opposite. He doubled down.
Double down? How?
In the absolute darkest moment of the crisis, when everything looked bleakest, he injected $1 billion of his own personal cash into Las Vegas Sands just to keep it afloat.
$1 billion of his own money after losing 93%.
Yeah, exactly. $1 billion. The reaction was disbelief. Analysts at the time literally called it financial madness.
I can imagine.
The market was terrible. Credit had completely frozen up. His company was hemorrhaging money. Other options, bankruptcy protection, selling on pieces of the business were definitely on the table. Many thought those were the only rational, if painful, choices.
But he ignored them.
Ignored them completely. That $1 billion injection, it bought the company vital time. It allowed those hugely profitable, though still relatively new, operations in Macau and Singapore to keep growing and eventually pull the whole company back from the brink. Without that personal cash infusion, the whole thing could have easily collapsed.
Injecting $1 billion when you've just lost almost everything. It does sound like madness, or at least an incredible gamble. Beyond just writing the check, what else defined his mindset during that crisis? I know he also had strong views on online gambling, even as competitors were moving that way.
That's right. His contrarian thinking went beyond just the immediate financial fix. Even as the digital world was pushing everything online and lots of casino companies started looking at online gambling as a new revenue stream, Adelson fought it tooth and nail.
Fiercely, I remember.
Fiercely. He publicly called it a toxic addiction trap. He lobbied hard against it getting legalized or expanded.
Was that purely a moral stance? Or was there strategy behind it too?
Well, he certainly framed it in moral terms often.
Yeah.
But it's also deeply strategic. Think about it. His entire business model, the integrated resort, was built on creating this massive multi-billion-dollar physical ecosystem. Luxury hotels, conventions, retail, entertainment, the whole experience. Online betting just couldn't replicate that at all.
Right. It's just clicking a button.
Exactly. So for Adelson, online gambling wasn't just a competitor. It was a threat that could dilute the unique value, the whole appeal of his huge physical destinations. He saw it as, frankly, a lower margin, potentially higher risk business that didn't have any of those ecosystem benefits he'd worked so hard to build. He was protecting his core, incredibly profitable model.
So resisting online gambling was part of protecting the integrated resort model.
Precisely. And the outcome of this unwavering conviction, both the cash injection and the strategic stance, it was legendary. By 2013, his fortune hadn't just recovered. It soared back to $37.2 billion, one of the greatest billionaire comebacks ever. It really does make you pause, doesn't it? How many people would have the sheer audacity, the nerve, to double down like that when facing a 93% loss and everyone telling you you're crazy? For Adelson, it seems setbacks were just temporary bumps, but the long-term vision, that was permanent.
It definitely shows extraordinary resilience, but, some might look at that $1 billion move and say, okay, it worked out, but wasn't it incredibly reckless? How do you tell the difference between bold vision and just recklessness?
That's a really important question. And I think the key difference, at least in Adelson's mind and how things played out, is that these weren't blind gambles. They seem to have been calculated risks. They were rooted in this deep, almost obsessive understanding he had of market needs and this unshakable belief in his own unique vision for the integrated resort.
So he saw something others didn't.
He really believed he did, and he had the capital, partly from COMDEX, and just the sheer force of will to execute that vision on a scale no one else was attempting. That madness of the $1 billion injection in 2008. You could argue it was financially sound if, and it's a big if, you believed the global economy would eventually recover, and if you believed in the fundamental strength of his Asian properties.
She clearly did.
He absolutely did. He had total conviction in his model, And he wasn't afraid to bet everything on himself and that vision. So it's maybe the difference between just rolling the dice and making a huge strategic investment based on an informed, even if it's contrarian, belief.
Okay, that's a crucial clarification. Now, Adelson's ambitions, as we've touched on, went way beyond just business and making money back. He clearly saw money as a tool, not just for wealth, but for actively shaping power, influencing society, politics at the highest levels.
Absolutely.
We saw this so vividly with his political engagement. I mean, the 2012 U.S. presidential election cycle, he and his wife Miriam donated over $150 million. That made them the single biggest individual political donors in America at that time.
Unprecedented numbers back then.
Then in 2016, he strongly backed Donald Trump, at least $25 million initially, maybe more later, really cemented his reputation as a kingmaker, someone whose support could make or break a campaign. And it wasn't just campaign donations. He understood media power, too. He secretly bought the Las Vegas Review-Journal in 2015, the biggest paper in Nevada, a key swing state.
Right, that caused quite a stir.
And he founded Israel Hayom, this free daily newspaper in Israel, which very quickly became the country's most widely read paper. This wasn't just about profit, it was about using money strategically.
Precisely. He was incredibly adept at synthesizing what you might call a power-thinking strategy. He basically created this triangle of influence. Yeah. Money flows to media, and media that informs and leverages politics. He used his vast financial resources to back candidates and causes that aligned with his core beliefs, which were primarily, very strong support for U.S.-Israel relations and generally conservative fiscal policies. Then he used his media outlets, like the Review-Journal and Israel Hayom, to shape public narratives, push certain viewpoints, give a platform to the people and ideas he supported.
And then leverage the politics.
And then leverage the political access and influence gained through donations and media support to push for specific policies. Things that benefited his business interests, like fighting online gambling, or advanced his geopolitical goals, particularly concerning Israel. Very few billionaires, really, in modern times have played that money, media, politics triangle so effectively, or maybe so openly as Adelson did.
So what was the reaction to that? When someone deploys wealth so strategically for political and media ends, especially buying a major newspaper secretly, that usually generates some strong feelings, right?
Oh, absolutely. It was hugely controversial, and the sources we looked at definitely highlight both sides of that debate. Critics were harsh. They accused him of trying to, quote, buy elections, of undermining the independence of the press, especially with the Review-Journal, where there were reports of staff changes and shifts in editorial focus after he took over.
Right. Concerns about editorial independence.
Exactly. Accusations that his ownership blurred the lines between objective journalism and political advocacy. On the other hand, you had his admirers. They saw him as a visionary, someone who was unapologetically using his success, his wealth, to promote beliefs he held deeply. They'd argue he was just exercising his right as a citizen, albeit a very wealthy one, to support candidates and causes he believed in.
And the newspapers?
His supporters would say his media ventures provided an alternative voice, maybe a necessary counterweight, in the public discourse, especially Israel Hayom, which was seen as giving strong support to Benjamin Netanyahu when other outlets might have been more critical. Adelson himself always maintained he was just exercising his rights, supporting what he thought was best for the U.S. and for Israel. So it really shows. Adelson proved that real power for him wasn't just having wealth. It was about deploying it strategically, where it multiplies influence. It turned the billionaire game into something deeply political, deeply cultural, and often sparking significant public debate.
So it really does tie back to that idea of money as leverage, as a tool deployed across every sphere: business, media, politics. Which brings us maybe to his core philosophy of life. It seems like for Adelson, life was about constantly moving forward, about momentum, not about getting comfortable. Fortune favors the bold, maybe, but discipline bold.
That sounds right.
He had that credo we mentioned. I don't play to minimize losses. I play to maximize wins. How did that aggressive, momentum-driven idea show up in his decisions, maybe even outside the purely financial bets?
It meant his decision-making was famously aggressive, often seen as uncompromising. When he saw an opportunity that fit his big picture, his grand vision, he just went for it. Didn't seem to hesitate much, no matter the cost or what critics said. The Marina Bay Sands project in Singapore, the $5.7 billion one we talked about, that's a perfect example.
Right, the shipbuilding.
Yeah. At the time, so many critics called it reckless. It was the most expensive standalone casino resort ever built, on reclaimed land, in a country known for being tough to develop in. Huge risks. But Adelson's conviction seemed absolute. His thinking was, essentially, if you're going to build something on the global stage, don't just build a resort. Build a landmark for the entire nation. Go big or go home, basically.
And it worked.
And today, it's not just Singapore's icon. It's one of those profitable resorts anywhere, consistently beating expectations. That's maximizing wins, not minimizing loss.
It sounds like this almost singular focus on making a massive impact, playing on the biggest possible scale. Did that extend beyond business? What about his philanthropy? Did he play big there too?
Absolutely. That philosophy carried right over into his philanthropy. He and his wife Miriam eventually gave away billions. Hundreds of millions poured into causes they were passionate about. Things like medical research, particularly around addiction, which had personally affected their family, education initiatives, and famously huge support for Jewish causes like Birthright Israel. They donated over $140 million just to that program, funding free trips to Israel for young Jewish adults.
So the scale was huge there too.
It's immense scale. For him, it seems wealth without legacy was meaningless. It wasn't enough just to have the money. It had to do something significant, leave a mark. And that's the paradox of Adelson, isn't it? He was this huge risk taker, but the risks always seem to be these calculated extensions of a bigger, deeply thought out vision. Where other people saw billions of dollars at stake and thought about potential losses, Adelson seemed to see them as just pieces in this giant legacy puzzle he was building. His life really forces you to ask, doesn't it? What do we do when we have some power, some resources in our hands? Do we play it safe? Do we play small? Or do we dare to play big, knowing the outcome could, destroy us or maybe make us unforgettable?
That is a really profound and maybe uncomfortable question for anyone to think about. We started this deep dive talking about paradox, and Sheldon Adelson's life really feels like the embodiment of it. Born poor, builds this colossal fortune, loses almost all of it, 93% in a crisis, then engineers one of the biggest comebacks in history.
So quite the arc.
His story, it's not just about casinos, it's not just about politics. It feels like it's about this relentless belief that your circumstances don't actually have to define your destiny. He showed, didn't he, that you can start with nothing and still fundamentally reshape entire industries, economies, even influence nations.
Indeed. I think Adelson's life really demonstrates that money, just sitting there, is actually powerless. It doesn't do anything on its own. But in the hands of someone with his kind of conviction, his vision, that relentless drive, well, then it becomes this incredibly potent lever, a lever to reshape industries, but also to influence governments, to fund causes he believed in with just total dedication.
But not without stirring things up.
Oh, definitely not without controversy. As this story clearly shows, using wealth that way often comes with pushback, with debate. It highlights that constant tension, doesn't it, between ambition and ethics, between personal goals and maybe the broader public good. Love him or hate him, you have to acknowledge he proved that wealth used with that level of conviction can create echoes far, far beyond just a balance sheet. So maybe the final thought for you, the listener, is this. How far would you dare to go if failure wasn't necessarily the end, but just a chapter in a much bigger story you are trying to write? What kind of legacy, whatever your scale of influence, would you want to build?